Besant and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. U.S. tariffs are also expected to remain a key topic on the summit agenda. State leaders have already begun arriving in Kuala Lumpur. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and his wife Rosângela were among the first, followed by Timor-Leste Prime Minister Kairala Sanana Gusmao. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa and his wife are expected to arrive this evening. Other arrivals include ASEAN member state leaders and dialogue partners such as China, South Korea and Japan.
ASEAN's 5-point peace plan for Myanmar is not difficult to implement, according to Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Muhammad Hassan. He said the bloc has urged Myanmar's authorities to carry out the plan and ensure that humanitarian aid reaches those in need. He stresses that while ASEAN cannot prevent a general election in Myanmar later this year, it wants the process to be free, fair and inclusive. ASEAN has remained split over how to end the deadly civil war in Myanmar sparked by a military coup in 2021. Fighting has intensified despite repeated calls for de-escalation, with ASEAN making little progress in getting Myanmar's military regime to adhere to a peace plan it agreed to months after the coup. ASEAN foreign ministers will discuss to whether send regional observers to Myanmar's general election, according to Muhammad. Critics have derided the election, set to begin in December, as a sham exercise to legitimize military rule. Malaysia and its ASEAN partners have a narrow opportunity to strengthen supply chains and trade links as the United States and China temporarily ease tariff tensions. Economist Professor Wong Chin Yong of University Tunku Abdul Rahman says the rivalry between the two powers is far from over, though a short period of calm may follow their talks in South Korea.
Now, at this moment, my observation is I do not think that the irreversible clash between China and the United States or the decoupling between these two nations will happen, given the fact that from the way that these two great powers interact, you will realize that China is not other countries in Trump's tariff deal in the past couple of months. China being the only country that really can hit back and being able to battle against the wheels of Trump. So because of that, then and also through the interactions between the back and forth in the past few days, then you will realize that this is a nation that Trump's probably and the team probably will have no idea yet on how to deal with. So and because of that, I believe that what we are going to observe in their meeting in South Korea days after the ASEAN Summit, even though I don't expect to have really a deal to be sealed through that kind of high-level meeting, because at the end, all the works are done at the groundwork. So, but I believe that tensions probably can be eased to some extent. Now, given that situation, so that basically give a room for Malaysia and ASEAN as well to take a breath and therefore to continue what we are doing the best. That is to connect all these nations in the world through the supply chain in ASEAN, and therefore to make the most out of it.
He urged Malaysia as ASEAN chair to use this moment to strengthen regional cooperation by aligning the upgraded ASEAN-China Trade Pact with the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Wong said better integration is key to avoiding overlapping rules that could confuse businesses and limit the benefits of both deals.
Well, so how to integrate this RCEP together with this upgrade version of FTA between China and ASEAN will be a very important element in order to make this FTA beneficial for everyone. Otherwise, it will be having another free trade agreement that basically will make things more complicated, and at the end, you're not going to see anyone utilizing this free trade agreement. So, which brings me to the second point. If we look back to the utilization of this RCEP in the past 2 years, the rate actually was very low. For example, we have only 9% of exporters actually utilized those provisions in the RCEP. Now, which amount to less than even 0.1% of total Malaysian exports to this RCEP market, which means that even though we have those benefits written on the paper, without full utilization at the end, it will be just the benefits on the paper. It won't be benefiting the economy and the companies as well.
Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva says he plans to tell US President Donald Trump that Washington's tariff on Brazilian goods were a mistake if they meet at the ASEAN Summit in Malaysia this weekend. Speaking to reporters in Jakarta, Lula says he's ready to defend Brazil's interests and press Trump to reconsider the 50% tariff on Brazilian exports.
Brazil and the US are finalizing a meeting between the two leaders on the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur. It would be their first formal talks since Trump returned to office. Trump earlier imposed a 50% tariff on many Brazilian products and sanctioned several officials, including a Supreme Court judge, in response to what he called a political witch hunt against former President Jair Bolsonaro, who he counts as an ally. Lula rejected claims of unfair trade, calling Trump's reasoning untrue. After a brief meeting during the UN General Assembly in New York last month and a follow-up call, relations have begun to warm. Lula said he hopes the meeting in Malaysia will help rebuild trust and lead to the removal of the tariffs.
Stay with us, more updates coming your way right after the break.
Dah bersedia untuk finali USME 2025 di The Curve, Damansara?
24 hingga 26 Oktober, tirai penutup jelajah selepas 4 lokasi di seluruh negara.
Peluang terakhir tahun ini untuk tim ilmu dan perkongsian bersama SME tempatan.
Lebih meriah dengan pelbagai aktiviti interaktif dan persembahan artis hebat.
Jangan lepaskan kemuncak USME 2025.
Menjana impak melalui inovasi digital.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Welcome back. US President Donald Trump has abruptly ended all trade negotiations with Canada after an advert from Ontario's government took aim at tariffs. The 1-minute spot never mentioned Trump by name, but it quoted former President Ronald Reagan saying tariffs hurt every American, a line widely seen as a swipe at the Trump's trade policy.
Trump fired back on social media, calling the ad fake and egregious and declaring all trade negotiations were now over. The advert featured excerpts from Reagan's 1987 radio address that cautioned about the long-term economic risks of tariffs, including job losses. Ontario Premier Doug Ford confirmed that the advertisement had come from his province. He is one of the most vocal critics of the taxes levied on U.S. firms buying Canadian products. In July, Trump's administration imposed a 35% tariff on many Canadian imports, including cars and steel. Prime Minister Mark Carney has been trying to ease those tariffs since taking office earlier this year. The United States, Canada and Mexico are scheduled to review their 2020 Continental Free Trade Agreement next year, a process that may now face increased tension following this latest dispute.
The White House confirms US President Donald Trump will have a meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the APEC summit in South Korea on October 30th. This will be their first face-to-face talks since Trump returned to office.
The announcement comes after weeks of uncertainty amid strained ties over China's move to tighten export rules on rare earth minerals. In response, Trump threatened a 100% tariff on Chinese goods starting in November. Trump said he expects a long meeting with the Chinese president and hopes both sides can sort out their differences. China's Commerce Minister Wang Wentao sounded equally positive, saying past talks show that solutions can be found to mutual concerns. Trade negotiators from both sides are also set to meet in Malaysia this week ahead of the ASEAN Summit, which Trump will attend.
United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio announces that Gaza will be demilitarized and that Hamas will not play any role in governing the territory in the future. He makes it clear that neither Hamas nor the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, will be involved in Gaza's administration or reconstruction. Rubio repeated the Israeli government's accusation that UNRWA functions as a subsidiary of Hamas, an allegation recently dismissed by the International Court of Justice. During his visit to southern Israel on Friday, the Secretary of State said any future Gaza security force created under a ceasefire agreement must be composed of countries acceptable to Israel. Any potential role for the Palestinian Authority has yet to be determined. US President Donald Trump has downplayed talks of Israel annexing the West Bank. He said Israel will not take any action on the disputed territory, despite lawmakers advancing legislation to annex parts of the area.
The West Bank is, don't worry about the West Bank. Israel's not going to do anything with the West Bank, okay? Don't worry about it. Is that your question? They're not going to do anything with the West Bank. Don't worry about it. Israel's doing very well. They're not going to do anything with it.
Trump said last month that he would block the controversial move by Israel. Israel's parliament gave preliminary approval to annex parts of West Bank, potentially disrupting US-brokered ceasefire talks.
EU leaders have agreed to continue financial support for Ukraine over the next 2 years, but stopped short of releasing more than 140 billion euros in frozen Russian assets to fund the country's defense. Belgium raised legal concerns over using Moscow's seized funds, warning it could trigger major litigation and financial instability.
The plan, which would convert Russian assets into reparations loan for Ukraine, has been postponed until December. Speaking at the Brussels summit, Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever warned that the proposal ventures into uncharted territory, adding Belgium needs concrete and solid guarantees before moving forward. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen meanwhile said the issue is legally complex, but stressed the EU remains committed to meeting Ukraine's financial needs. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the outcome a signal of political support for Kyiv's fight against Moscow. Meanwhile, the EU announced new sanctions on Russia's energy sector, mirroring recent US measures targeting oil giants Rosneft and Lukoil. The summit comes ahead of a London meeting on Friday, where Zelensky is expected to push for expanded long-range missile supplies to Ukraine.
That report wraps up AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on social media. I'm Amirul Aiman. Thank you for watching. Good night.